Is it too difficult to oblige the Republic of Cameroon to meet Ambazonia on the table and let discussions begin?
It will never happen.
Why?
If that's what we're counting on, then you will be having the same discussion in 20 years, not with me because I may be gone by then, but with somebody else. Exactly the same point. There is no country in the world that is going to say to the Republic of Cameroon, you sit down with the people of Southern Cameroons and decide on how you're going to divorce.
My country people them, when I listen to these amber fools, they get this discussion and interaction with Tibor Nagy. They really make me understand why they call some of we Anglophones say Anglophiles. Because Tibor Nagy don't talk him for plain simple English several times. They need to agree here. They believe say if they just ask Tibor Nagy the same question 17 different ways, maybe the answer will change. The answer never ever change. Christopher Anu don't bring Tibor Nagy. He can't talk for his so-called TV or whatever Facebook page. Tibor Nagy tell you the same thing. The international community is not going to solve your problem for you. It tell you. Capo Daniel and Asu Lucas, they bring Tibor Nagy. They can't tell them exactly the same thing. Say we need for at least agree on how many days they are in January. Because we disunity now we biggest problem. And we no fit blame President Paul Biya for our own stupidity and disunity. No be Paul Biya divide una. ADF divide Sako, it defied Ayabacho, it defied Chris Anu, it defied. I mean, that, okay, we'll go back to the stupid so-called discussion and interview with Tibor Nagy. So, in the beginning for 2016, 2017, and even going back to 1995, when were these Anglophones, they be agitate. Some of the elites, where they be educated, they be exposed, and they understand how international systems they function, they be don't caution these Anglophiles. Say what you are about to do, it will backfire, it will never work, because the international system does not function that way. They deny. Even people like Simon Munzu from 1995, it be now one of the people the way they formed the SCNC, they talk about separation and all those things. Later on, he get a job, he work in the United Nations, he understand how the United Nations function. By 2016, 2017, where they want to start this nonsense, people like Simon Munzu, Dr. Simon Munzu, sorry for the disrespect, it tell them, it caution them, say it will not work. It will not work. The international community will not respond to that nonsense when I want to start and things say so. Some person there for America, for London, for Paris, or wherever, where it can't break Cameroon, give one a half, it will not work. They caution them. People them like even Rebecca Tinsley, when a white woman, it tell them the same thing. You get Eric Chinje, it tell them the same thing. Anglophone elites, they tell them it will not work. They go ahead, that's all because of their stupidity. They carried the checkup from Kradai gone. 5 years, 6 years later, they achieved nothing. And then now they started surprised why international community never run, can't give them their wildest dreams. And then now that they ask Tibor Nagy the same question 17 different times or 17 different ways for make the man change the answer, the man tell them this time around, Sweti, there is nothing like international community. You're on your own. And then they ask you, say, but you did prescribe referendum. I mean, if the international community, no, if we force Cameroon government for can't dialogue with we, so how come international community go force Cameroon government for give we referendum? Now, every when I tell them, say, you have to achieve that by yourself, by one, being united in purpose. I mean, imagine, say, an American congressman or, a member of the House or whatever, if you run for your office, Cameroon Anglophone diaspora enter for your office, can't talk, say, oh, Ambazonia, 1961, this and that, we want independence. Okay, the man here. The next day, is it the same Anglophone diaspora again enter or another one? It talks, say, no, we want a federation. The man confused. And then the next day, another Anglophone diaspora, he enter for the office, talks to this. So no, the Amber terrorists, they're on the ground, they don't kidnap my part, they cut his head, now video this. Huh? And then the next day, another Anglophone Cameroonian enter for the same senator or congressman in the office. He tell you say this, so they don't want the federation, they don't want independence. They want them now, one an indivisible Cameroon, or they want them a confederation. So, I mean, first of all, start by knowing what you want. That is the basic, I mean, ballpark mark on the ground where you get to at least know what way you want, so that when you go lobby for that thing, and you have to be very specific. So this is it. So that when you want to go put pressure or mount pressure on your behalf, or you want to make different organization or different company or country, they mount pressure on your behalf, they go know what to ask for, what to demand for. But now the Anglophones, they be so confused. They don't even know the which way they want. That is the first problem. Now, when I tell them, say, you first of all have to be united. And then when you be united in purpose, now you feel mount pressure. You feel bring out your own lobbying and all of those kinds of things for convince certain international partners now for lobby on your behalf for achieve which way you want. But right now, we never even there at the level of knowing what we want. But when I listen to the rest of the interview, when I enjoy the stupidity of Anglophones.
I know the history, and I know that Southern Cameroonians are passionate about the history. But the point I have made over and over to my Southern Cameroonian friends, immaterial of what their own solution is that it's really important to not put the emphasis on the past, but to put it on the future. Because quite frankly, again, I have always done my best to tell the truth, to be direct, and now not to be diplomatic. But, you know, the pages and pages and pages of history of what happened with this UN resolution, what happened in that plebiscite, where we are today is where we are today. And if the Southern Cameroonian leadership and the elites and the people want to resolve their problems and achieve their full dignity, then they really have to focus on the future instead of coming up with arguments that, well, you know, once upon a time this happened, so it's the responsibility of the international community to all of a sudden create the state of Ambazonia and give it to us. Because, you know, that would be nice, but honestly, it's not going to happen. So we can talk about science fiction and fantasy, or we can talk about reality. And, you know, I have said this over and over, and I will keep saying it, that if the people of Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia want to achieve their rights, they have to deal with the way the world is today.
Yeah, I'm happy you said what you said. They have to deal with the way the world is today. And one of the phalanx, if I would say, or the approach that the international community and the world goes about solving conflicts is by looking at the root causes of it. Now, for Southern Cameroonians to flip back through the pages and ask questions, our history was denied to be taught for us. There was probably a conspiracy or an evil mechanization to deny us of what actually began to us. If they are bringing that on the table of a discussion, don't you think is a smart way of looking? Permit me to use this scientific explanation since you don't want fiction. If you have HIV, for instance, are you going to cure the scabies on your body, or will you be looking to find how to eliminate the virus?
But also, if you have HIV, the important thing is not how you got HIV. It's how we cure HIV. As far as the international community is concerned, again, you know, I'm being brutally honest. Whether your listeners like it or not, I believe in the truth. From the international community point of view, the problems of Southern Cameroon began in 2017. You know, and I know that the problems go way, 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 way back to German colonialism and even before. But if you want to deal with the solution, the international community started paying attention to Southern Cameroons when the lawyers strike, the teacher strikes, and the brutal response of the government happened in 2017.
Yeah. I think that like you've rightfully said, it has also been said that whatever happened in 2017 was just the immediate causes. I'm glad you said it using other words. It was the immediate causes of a problem, and therefore, caution must be exercised when providing solution. Prior to 2017, we've had Southern Cameroonian elites and leaders seeking to find a solution to this problem, which they never got until 2017, and now we have thousands of innocent lives being wasted. Don't you think diligence entails that the root cause of the problem is visited again as a way of drafting a proper way forward?
The root of the problem obviously impacts the types of solutions that people look at. But that's only for part of the audience. Because as I said, take a look at the world. Take a look at the quote unquote major crises that are happening right now. You mentioned the international community, and I have said over and over again also, people don't want to hear this. There is no such thing as the international community, because very rarely is there any form of unanimity amongst the major countries in the world on any particular issue. Look at Ukraine. Look at even what's happening in Sudan. The international community, certainly there's not unanimity in who they are supporting in Sudan or how they want the outcome to be in Sudan. So you have to deal with the fact that there is no international community per se, but you want to find a solution from among the major countries involved in any particular problem. I cannot speak for the U.S. government. I have to say that over and over again. As I said when I was assistant,
and that's why I say
what I would advise, when I was assistant secretary, I considered the Southern Cameroon problem one of my major, agenda items. Unfortunately, even at that time within the U.S. government, it was very, very difficult to get other people to pay attention to it. Even members of Congress, I found a few key members of Congress who were interested, but most members of Congress were not. And this goes back to another issue that I think we need to discuss, and that is the disunity amongst the Cameroonian diaspora, the Southern Cameroon diaspora outside of Southern Cameroons, because you're absolutely right. If the Cameroon government was going to really want to get the attention of the United States at this point in a very bad way, they would make a deal with Wagner mercenaries to do something, in Yaoundé. If they were to do something like that, I promise you, they would immediately get the very high level attention of the U.S. government. But, failing that, you look around the continent, you look at the various crises going on, and I have said before, again being brutally honest, that Washington only has capability to give attention to, in the African continent, maybe 3 or 4 crises at any one time. Beyond that, people just don't see it because it's not taking up the kind of attention that, say, Sudan, even Eastern Congo, the Sahel, Somalia, when we had the Tigray War. Those are the things that are grabbing the headlines. And I'll add one other thing. The poor person in Bafut who was killed is dead. it doesn't matter to him or to her whether it's a major crisis or a minor crisis, but that poor innocent individual is still dead, just as much as people are in a major crisis. That's why for me the cause in southern Cameroon remains a real passion.
You have made a suggestion that the people on the ground, and I've heard you say a couple of times even here, are facing the brunt of the war, and you would like them to make their own decision. And you thought that a referendum is an option. Mr. Nach, I want to ask you before we get into the intricacies involved with the referendum. I'd like to know, how do you think that can be executed legally during such a time?
My thinking is not so much the mechanism. As I said before, I am much more interested in achieving justice, dignity, liberty, fairness for the people of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Referendum is not the goal. Referendum would be a mechanism. And the only reason I cite referendum, it's one possibility. I look at historical cases, and the history I look at specifically related to Africa, but there's obviously others. Referendum is not mutually exclusive from other mechanisms. If I look at the United States of America, the way the United States of America achieves independence is fighting for it, winning the war, and then negotiating the outcome directly with the British. If I look more at Africa, say let's look at Eritrea. The Eritreans and the Tigrayans fought the Mengistu regime. They eventually chased them out of Addis Ababa. They took over the country, but the Eritreans wanted independence. So they conducted a referendum, and overwhelmingly the Eritreans people, voted to leave, and they created their own country. SPLA, SPLM, South Sudan fought a very long civil war against the Sudanese, the northern Sudanese. It was a stalemate for most of it. They liberated a lot of territories, but at the end of the day, the Sudanese government agreed to a referendum. They conducted a referendum, and the South Sudanese voted, I think, 98%, something like that, for independence. If you look back further, even a country such as Norway, they had a union with Sweden, and there was an election in the early 1900s, a referendum, and they voted to disassociate, to dissolve the union, and to create their own country. So in history, referendums have been combined with other mechanisms to achieve independence, so that you have countries that may have de facto independence, but to get the what's called de jure independence, sometimes a referendum is required so that the global community says, okay, the people on the ground voted for it, so we will recognize it. There is another interesting case right now in Africa, which in a little bit parallels the situation in Ambazonia, and that's the case of Somaliland. Somaliland, British Somaliland and Italian Somaliland joined together to form the nation of Somalia. British Somaliland became independent first. After Siad Barre was overthrown, the Somalilanders very much wanted independence. They fought for it. They achieved it. They have now been running their own state very successfully for 20-some years, even longer. And yet the only country in the world that recognizes Somaliland happens to be Taiwan, because the Africa Union has its own dynamics, why they don't do it, other countries don't do it, and yet Somaliland is at least as successful a nation as most other nations, around them. So it's a complicated situation, but often a referendum is a very good means to get the international community's acceptance of the state's being.
Do you realize, Mr. Nach, that all the examples you have mentioned, none of them really have a typical story? Eritrea, Sudan, Somaliland, that can be likened to case of Southern Cameroon. First of all, we understand that the two countries, Southern Cameroon and French Cameroon, were UN trusteeship territories. We cannot talk our stories without necessarily linking it with our past. And these two Category B trusteeship territories came into an experimental union of two equal status. Now, the union was not done rightfully. It didn't work. Yaoundé themselves cannot even explain how their gendarmes invaded Southern Cameroon, and so on and so forth. This is history we are aware. The United Nations Charter is in contravention of the procedures that were employed to lead us to where we are today. There is no treaty of union existing anywhere. And a lot of people argue that Cameroon has simply invaded or annexed the former British Southern Cameroons, meaning there is a culprit, there is a crime. We're talking about illegality. And I understand that there are two ways of handling illegality, either in a courtroom or out of a courtroom via a negotiation. How do you want a people who feel cheated of independence and who are requesting for justice to be preconditioned with a referendum as a way to determine their future?
So how would you then fix the situation?
We think that the powers that be should simply respect their own laws.
Yeah, how
Don't you
would that
think
happen?
to set the right precedents? Because if it is not properly handled, you can have another French Cameroon somewhere else doing just the exact same thing. To set the precedents in a world that we're trying to build a global village and a peaceful, global, prosperous village, don't you think it would be right for the legality and historicity to be addressed with some form of honesty?
You're discussing academics and philosophy, not practicalities. I always get back to the point
I would like
how
to know why. I would like to know why it's not practical. That's exactly what I'm trying to know. Because
that's why I'm asking you. So who will do it? How will it happen?
the same actors. Now, in Kasna Nyangwe's book, he accuses the United Kingdom for departing or conspiring and not doing it, or not handling the situation rightfully. The United Nations is talking very loudly about Sudan today, and unfortunately, the United Nations doesn't seem to speak the way we expected them, cognizant of an experiment that they initiated that has failed. We just think that authorities that be, to save more lives, should respect their own laws. Isn't that just an honest and simple approach?
Yeah, but I get back to my question. As I said at the beginning, I'm not committed to any mechanism. I'm committed to the outcome. But your approach from what you're saying, how would it actually be done in
The
today's
first
world?
thing President Sako has suggested is for a negotiated settlement without preconditions. Is it so difficult, for instance, for the actors in the world to oblige La République du Cameroon? Is it too difficult to oblige La République du Cameroon to meet Ambazonia on the table and let discussions begin?
It will never happen.
Why?
If that's what we're counting on, then you will be having the same discussion in 20 years, not with me because I may be gone by then, but with somebody else. Exactly the same point. There is no country in the world that is going to say to the Republic of Cameroon, you sit down with the people of Southern Cameroons and decide on how you're going to divorce.
Okay, the word divorce there is probably an overstatement because in the United States of America, a marriage is confirmed and sealed when there is a marriage certificate. Do you think, in fact, there is no treaty of union that binds the former British Southern Cameroons to the Amazonia and La République du Cameroun. That is an open secret. So why do the world and the United Nations and all the authorities that seek to talk about different things, why would they despise this act of illegality and a belligerent occupation from an occupier like French Cameroon?
Because the world doesn't care.
It's wrong then for Southern Cameroonians to say this is an international conspiracy.
The world doesn't care. That's why I told you early on, I look at the world the way it is. I don't look at it through rose-colored glasses. And what I think about and what I care about is how do we achieve what we want to achieve in today's world. That's why I sometimes shake my head at, these wonderful, actually judicial, legal, philosophically correct arguments that are not going to achieve anything.
Okay, Mr. Nagy, I'm going to ask you the last question and probably open the line so we can take some calls and reactions from the public. We have seen an exceptional, passionate wave of support and help towards Ukraine since Russian supposed invasion. It's a legal practice within the United States of America to make donations to send weapons. How will it look like if we wake up, or how would Ukrainians look at it if they wake up one morning and somebody is telling the Ukrainian public to sit themselves down and to seek for their independence or their freedom from Russian aggression and invasion via a referendum? How will that sound?
Well, you can't compare the two situations. Ukrainian army is on the ground battling the Russians and pushing them back. And you started with two sovereign countries, both of which were recognized as members of the United Nations, and both signed on to the United Nations Charter. And you had one country physically invade another country. So, you can try and fit that into the Amazonia Republic of Cameroon situation. But again, you can make any arguments you want and you can win the debate, but the world is not going to see it that way. I go back to the question. The most important thing is to achieve justice and dignity and the full rights of citizenship for Southern Cameroonians. It's not to win points in a scholastic or academic or philosophical debate. The Somalilanders feel exactly the same way you do. They make exactly the same points you do. The big difference between Somaliland and Amazonia is Somaliland has been running its own country for 20 years. They have a standing army. They have a navy. They have a banking system. They have currency. But still, the world does not give them de jure recognition.
And I believe they actually fought to get that.
They did, and they won.
Okay.
We have,
right
by the
after,
way, I wanted to let you know, I absolutely have to leave at 4 o'clock because I have
yeah,
another interview to do.
yeah, that's fine. I'm going to take a few questions from the public.
This Pastor Victor, and we have been following up with all your write-ups and all the contributions you've been putting towards this revolution. My question to you is, you said there that there is nothing called the international community, and what will you say to Resolution 1608 in line with us having justice in line for what we have been through in the hands of the Republic? Where do we keep Resolution 1608? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nagy.
Which one is 1608? Is
Resolution
that the
16.
ninth? Which one?
XP, I think Article 5, which actually declares Ambazonia as sovereign, or Southern Cameroon as a sovereign. Now, it's important to link that to the United Nations vote in April 21st, whereby a large majority, I think 63, voted for the independence of Southern Cameroon.
Is
And
this the
like
1960? Is this the one from 1961?
yeah,
Yeah.
1961.
You know, again, I have to say, in today's world, it doesn't matter. It's not going to impact one bit the resolution of what happens in Southern Cameroons.